Thanks for joining us once more for another thoughtful conversation. Looking forward to this one. It should be interesting. No pressure from my guest, Patrick Harte, Joint Managing Director for Cambridge HOK, which makes sense to me because I know who you are and I know the business and we work together. But tell us a bit more, if you wouldn't mind.
We are a horticultural engineering business. We focus on anything to do with growing a plant. And that's building the infrastructure, the buildings around it, from glasshouses to indoor farms, garden centres, Victorian glasshouses in posh estates, kind of anything where there's a plant being grown. We do all of that, and we have all of it under one roof. So we do the bits below the ground, so drainage, concrete, the structures, heating, cooling systems, irrigation, lighting, absolutely everything to do with that building from a greenfield site. Turnkey job. Here's the keys. There's the project.
And who's Patrick? What's your origin story? How did you get into this in the first place?
I started as a graduate trainee at British Sugar. I did 10 years for them. And one of the roles I got there was running Cornaway's nursery, as it was. So we had 18 hectares of tomato production, converted that into pharmaceutical crops. Met Cambridge HOK along the way, who'd built the glasshouses. So went from grower to construction side of it, and joined Cambridge with a view of buying into the business, and then bought the business out with my business partner, Louis Bradley, and a Dutch group called Atrium Agri helped fund our deal. And we're now part of the largest horticultural engineering group in the world. Lots of access to very, very smart people, and being able to take the best of what the world now does in horticulture and bring it to the UK.
And we were talking outside before the camera started rolling. It sounds like it's going great guns.
Yeah, really, really, really well. We've got 4 companies in our group now. We started a refrigeration business, so we moved into cooling in the food industry, so beyond just traditional horticulture for meat and dairy buildings. And in the groups now, we're now 90 odd people as a business, covering all of the engineering disciplines. When we started, about 60, 70 people. The company's been going since 1955 and has steadily grown as the industry's developed.
So have glasshouses become your love then, following Cornaway's into where you are today?
Yeah, I think that connection with the food that you eat and consume, and actually the skill and science and the amazing growers our country has to produce all of that. Yeah, it's an industry you fall in love with. It's an industry about working with other people, and tends to be a lot more about sharing successes and cheering on your peers within the industry. And it's quite addictive. And now we get to build the structures that are the future of the industry and the things that we're going to produce food for the next 30 years.
And the nature of is it glasshouses or greenhouses? Are we using the word interchangeably?
Interchangeably.
Better
fine.
check.
Yeah, no. Interchangeably is fine.
I'll be in trouble. The nature of where those structures are going, like you say, and I know some examples of the projects you've done. So from, as you say, big fancy estate type farmhouse type things, into garden centres, into very big commercial, huge expanses of glass. The technology that's going into these things is getting ever more sophisticated. What are the big changes you've seen in greenhouses over the years?
If you went back to our country's origin in 1955, we built very, very simple glasshouse structures. And we used to put a glasshouse over something, and then we used to put a plant in some soil, and we were able to grow it, had a bit of protection. And that was it. The structures have got bigger and bigger and bigger. And now we're designing systems that are about optimizing the temperature, the climate, the water, the light, even doing indoor farms now, where actually you've got total control over everything. And the science and technology that's coming in that we're taking from other industries, each engineering discipline is being absolutely maximized. So that if you go back to your GCSE biology, we need heat, we need temperature, we need water, light. All of the science going into that now is building incredibly high-tech structures. What we're also seeing now as a real change in the industry is automation. So we used to do all of this with a lot of people, and in some crops we still do, often fruit-bearing crops. But if you look at crops like lettuce now, you can do it pretty much peopleless. The seed is sown using an automated seeding instrument. We grow it, we move everything through the whole site, we chop it with an automated harvester, and then we bag it. So we're bringing in more and more high-tech and skilled jobs that were perhaps once done by people. And now we're starting to see some of that into the fruit crops, where we're seeing robotic pickers and robotic de-leafers. And so some of the more traditional jobs that people have been doing, we're now getting equipment starting to do that. Some of those are still a bit way off being commercial.
Yeah.
But really looking at how we can make a glasshouse more people-less, automate the process, helps with consistency of quality, and is bringing in more and more skilled jobs to our industry.
Whilst I assume that the computerization of how greenhouses work, the optimization of the climate, the efficacy of the lighting, is the nature of the structure and the glass still the same? Is glass, or is that dare I ask that question?
No. If you went back, we would build something that was 2 or 3 meters tall, going back 30, 40 years. Now glass houses for modern commercial, 6, 7 meters tall. We've realized that by having that height, we can create more of a climate buffer from, if you've ever been in a glass house at home, it gets really hot in summer.
Yeah.
You don't want your plants sat in that heat. So we make them much taller for optimizing climate. There's lots of new technologies in glass, looking at coatings to reflect light and stop the glare coming off and bouncing back, so we can actually drag light into the glass house, so the light's getting more and more transparent. The structure itself, the steel, the aluminium, every component is getting thinner and thinner and thinner so that we lose less light. So a modern glass house now is totally different, and is every inch of those components is still being developed and designed to squeeze that little bit more production that we can get out of the structure.
How much of the components is manufactured in the UK, or are you dealing with a global supply chain to find the parts and the elements to bring together?
It depends. So we've still got our own factory. We still build glass houses and design those elements. On some of them more high tech or larger scale, we might be buying that in from international partners. We're importing from places like China for certain types of glass. So it is a global supply chain now, but we still maintain a UK manufacturing capability, being able to do some of the more bespoke, highly technical structures, working with the likes of Kew Gardens, for example, where we've done some of that in our own factory this year,
nice.
To give us that in-house capability of really bespoke design.
So in terms of your customers, are a lot of the customers replacing legacy old glass, or is it about new sites, growth, new investment?
A combination, I think. So we have a significant part of our business doing sort of repairs, maintenance, upgrades. That could be demolishing back and starting again. We're also seeing new sites, new investments, new entrants to the market. I think one of the big changes, particularly in commercial growing now, is we used to build a glass house and talk about how we were going to put energy into it. We now find the energy and build the glass house next to it.
Yeah.
So co-locating with energy sources to make sure that we've got, could be renewable, waste heat, some of those newer sources to give a cost advantage, but also taking into account some of the environmental factors. So yeah, now we hunt energy and we build glass houses next to them. That's been probably a shift over the last decade. But a glass house is a big energy business, and you'll often see growers talk about the energy market as much as they would about the fresh produce market. The two intertwined. As sites have got bigger and economies of scale, that sort of thinking is really forefront for new sites.
So was the Cornerways site at the forefront of that in terms of waste heat and waste CO2?
Yeah, and still would remain today. I mean, taking heat and CO2 from the sugar factory next door is still fairly unique, and certainly gives an advantage to that business. We're seeing more and more of those models, things like anaerobic digestion plants that have been built in the last 10 years. They're great for co-locating next to glass houses, and there's some good examples in the industry of those as well. We're starting to see development plans next to energy from waste plants. They are huge producers of waste heat. A glass house is a great fit next to it. You're talking megawatts and megawatts of spare heat. So looking at those as some of the new models for development will mean new sites and new growers potentially to the industry, but we're able to do it on a scale which is huge now. And that's really what the industry's seen. A big glass house going back 30 years would be an acre, and now we might talk a big site is 100 acres.
You have to spend time, invest time in partnering and pairing and having conversations with those AD specialists, or the waste specialists, as much as you do with the people who are invested in the growing of a crop.
Yeah, and it's bringing those people together. But I think there is still a lot of people looking at the energy industry and saying how we can build lots of glass houses. The key in it all is the grower. that is still a unique skill. And as things have got more and more technical, and we're able to provide more and more technical facilities, there's a lot more skill in running them. And we still don't have huge margins in fresh produce, so we can't get it wrong. Our growers can't get it wrong. You've got to be good every single year. And I think people still recognise that that's a huge skill that is needed. And there are fewer really good growers out there. But those that are good are really the future of the industry.
Well, that's a nice segue into another thing I wanted to talk about, which is this scarcity of talent. And we've talked about it before, because in order to do some of the roles in your business, you need to understand the technical engineering elements of the glass and the irrigation and the heat and the lighting, everything else that goes with it, in addition to understand the challenges that a grower faces. So you need the credibility in both markets in order to be effective. How do we try and find people? Do we look at other sectors? Do we try and grow our own? What do we do?
What we've found is once people get in, it's so interesting and exciting. And we're really lucky. We're a projects-driven business. So every year is totally different. I have no idea what we're building. Maybe a bit next year, the year after, none. I don't know what the projects are going to be. I probably haven't met half of the customers that we'll trade with. What we see is attracting people in, once getting them in through the door is the key part of that, and trying to do that as early of someone's career and developing them up. And so we've certainly put in place plans for developing people. And we talk about development plans over 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So we're already looking at people who might be able to run our business in the future and developing the skills, the knowledge. We probably see over 10 years a cycle of projects where you can start to say, I've done something similar to that. So it's a really long pipeline for us. So I think it's a lot of stuff that you can do around, really looking after people, development plans, really investing in people for the long term and trying to develop that skill. Certainly for us as a business, there aren't many other glass sales businesses in the UK. So we can't even go and say, I'll go and nick it from someone else. We really have to develop our own, and it is different to most other construction types.
Is there more we can do to try and put the sector on the radar of people who've never thought about it? In terms of social content and videos, whatever it might be, because some of the projects you do are really cool. And I think these guys will love this, but the drone footage type ideas to put it in front of school kids or university students who maybe don't know what they want to do, but would be more than happy if they knew about it to work in this sector.
Yeah, I think so, because what we're doing now, the structures and what growers are able to do, when you get your heads around how we actually produce our food, you suddenly think, this isn't like growing at home in the garden. I'm rubbish at that. But what we can produce with a structure and create, incredible produce day in, day out under all sorts of different climates, just showing people as soon as they see it and they get a bit of the understanding behind it, it speaks for itself. It's amazing in what you can do.
Yeah, it feels like if you happen to have a commute or a holiday that takes you past a Thanet or a Bridge Farm or a Cornerways or something, and you see it and go, oh my God, what is that? It's massive. And I had no clue what was going on there. If you're lucky enough to drive past one, you see it. But for most people, it won't be on their radar.
And once you really understand what's in it as well and what's going on and the scale and the production, and, you start meeting people and they talk to you about tons per day of product and you think, how the hell are you producing that sort of thing? And it's so interesting an industry. But getting someone's foot in the door, I think once they're in, most people fall in love, right, and tend not to leave the industry.
Your enthusiasm for it is infectious. It piques my interest every time we talk about it. I could talk about it all day, but hey, look, apply below. Maybe we throw some links in there. Let's get more people into the sector.
Definitely.
Thanks for spending the time.
Brilliant. Thanks, Andrew.